Thank you for joining us today in this seminar. And for today, we have a special speaker, our alumni from session 2015 batch, Ishmeet Singh. He is currently based in Canada, working in Microsoft as SDE Level 2. And today, he'll be sharing his insights and experiences for us to understand how we can grab the perfect placement and the companies we desire, and also how can we start and build a complete startup from scratch. The session will be followed up with a Q&A where the floor will be open to every one of you to ask if you guys have any problems or queries regarding the same. And yeah, so without wasting any further time, I would like Mr. Ishmeet Singh to please take over.
Thank you. Thank you, Lovepreet. Well, thanks for having me. Just gonna share my screen in a moment and we'll start. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, yes, it's visible.
All right, perfect. Well, thanks for having me, everyone, and hope you're doing safe and well. And it's not a good time in India, and I really hope your families are safe and you guys are safe. All right, so as Lovepreet mentioned, I'm an alumni from 2015 batch, and I'm currently working at Microsoft, and I would love to share my insights with you. Just want to keep it more like a Q&A session where you guys can um, ask me questions freely. Just feel free to drop in your questions in chat, maybe or raise your hand uh, while I'm talking, and if you would like me to stop somewhere, we'll definitely have a Q&A at the end as well. But yeah, feel free to jump in anytime. All right. So let's just start. So I'm just going to talk briefly about my journey. So I graduated GTBIT in 2015, and then I enrolled at Queen's University in Kingston for an MEng program in computer engineering. I studied various subjects there, which were not like core to my previous degree. So I was an actually C graduate. I didn't do computer science. Uh, I did most part of my computer science learning at Queens. Um, but yeah, so that's where it started. I then moved to work as iOS engineer at Royal Bank of Canada in mobile banking. Um, there I worked on the mobile banking app for building the core interface for payments and doing the test automation for UI and so on. While I was working at RBC, I also co-founded Simplified Automation. So Simplified Automation is the idea behind the product was to basically help manufacturing companies to improve their processes. So what we did was build out a software which will streamline some processes on the floor. And when I say floor, it's basically a manufacturing line. And when they do streamline this process, it's kind of they save. There are some savings involved. They save a lot of money if the processes are being done right. And yeah, so that's all about it was. We started in 2017-ish, and we expanded to Unilever, and we also are working with Whirlpool currently, and Unilever, of course. And our software is basically multilingual, multi-regional, so we serve customers in different countries. For example, in US, Mexico, Australia, Chile, and Brazil. Um, so recently, I moved out from the CTO role and continued as technical advisor to Simplified Automation to join Microsoft Corporation as a software engineer too. Uh, Here, I'm working at the Teams app. I'm taking care of the uh, calling and meeting part in iOS Teams app. Um, yeah, that's about what I've been doing so far. All right, so let's talk a bit about um, how you can become a better engineer. You know, uh, there has been a lot of questions come up to me like, how can I improve my profile? How can I make uh, recruiters pick my resume almost every time? And what's the best way to learn as an engineer? So the first thing that I would like to emphasize on that you gotta learn continuously, even if you feel that you're good at something, there's never gonna be time then that you're perfect at something. You're always gonna continue learning, keep iterating on your concepts, keep learning on whatever technology you prefer to work in. Is there a question? Okay, so yeah, and so just keep your learning going. Don't stop or don't think ever that you know enough. There's always room to learn in technology because the most part it's basically changing every day. The technology is evolving every day. You got to evolve with the technology. I would say that's the crux of it. Um, and then find your stack. So that's one of the most important thing that try out different technologies. Because you are in college, you kind of have that advantage that you don't have anything to lose when you fail. So uh, given that, I think there's a lot of room where you guys can do trial and error on different kind of technologies and pick up the one that most interests you. Just don't go with the jargons. Don't go with the hype that's created in the industry. Just try to find out what's best for you, what makes you feel more interesting. Um, so yeah, that's it. And then yeah, got to build projects. Why we say build projects? Because we feel that there's no better way to learn than implementing what you're learning. You learn by doing something. So build projects. Work on different projects. If you don't have something in mind by yourself, join a friend, maybe join some other company as an intern, or just help someone else. You can also go to GitHub. There are a lot of open source projects that where you can contribute. Uh, so yeah, there are different avenues for you when I say you want to work on some projects. It could be your own project, it could be someone else's project, it could be an open source project. So anything would work, but you got to just do something more practical than just learning or doing courses online. Um, so while you're doing projects, it's basically very easy to lose track of what you know if you're actually doing it well, because you don't have any feedback. You're doing it by what you're seeing online and so on. But actually, the best way to know if you're doing is right is to actually find someone who can review your code. So code review is basically something that you will see as soon as you enter any industry as a software engineer or maybe as a hardware engineer as well. Uh, as soon as you join any company and you start working on any sort of code review is basically an integral part of any process, any software development process. So you will see your code is being reviewed by either one or two people who are senior to you, who are older to you in the company. They have more domain knowledge, etc. So yeah, so if you start this process earlier, you'll probably have a better way of writing code than other people. So that will make you stand out from the population. Uh, yeah, that's it. And then lastly, whatever you do, make sure you showcase that on internet. Just publish the apps. There are a lot of free platforms you can use. You can use Firebase. It's practically free. Uh, there are different other. You can use GitHub as well to showcase your project. GitHub should always be there, like without even saying. So uh, yeah, I mean, it's really important to showcase your work because if you have done something and it's for no one to see, it's basically you can't take advantage of that. All right, so I'm just going to talk briefly about how the interview processes are usually in large companies and what can you expect, how to tackle that situation. Uh, by no means, like I'm emphasizing again, by no means any sort of guidance in terms of, or I would say any sort of process is standard to any company. So what happens is when you apply uh, for any company, even the same company for different roles, they might have different process for the interview. So there is an ABC to it. Like you can prepare a bit in terms of it's more or less same. It's not that different, but you might see a little bit of fluctuation based on the role you're applying, based on the company you're applying. Right. So it usually starts with a discovery call with a recruiter, and basically they'll be talking about the role. They'll be telling you about the company. They're gonna find a match between you and the company, or maybe the you and the team they're hiring for. If you're applying to companies like Google, Amazon, Microsoft, etc., there's usually you don't know what team you're going to be working with at the beginning of the interview because the hiring pool, the team matching is actually done at the end after they have decided that they're going to select you. So at this point, you just want to basically know what the interview process is going to be specifically for you. You have opportunity to ask questions about the company. If they already know the team, that's well and good, but mostly that's not the case. Uh, in small and medium-sized companies, this is probably you would probably know what team are you going to work on, which product are you going to work on, and so on. All right. So next is basically you would either get an online coding interview or a technical screening. When I say online coding interview, it's basically a self-take test, which is at home. Like it would be very similar to competitive programming platforms like maybe HackerRank, LeetCode, Codility, and so on. So it might include some domain knowledge questions. So for example, if you're applied for front-end position, you might see some questions related to front-end. Could be as basic as HTML and JavaScript, but it could also be more advanced based on what technology and what level of role you are applying on. You might see that, or you might see a technical screening. A technical screening, particularly in Google, is basically they're gonna pair up you with one of the Google engineer, and you're gonna jump on a call and you're gonna solve a problem on a Google document, right? So that's how it goes at Google, but that's just one company. But if you look at the majority of the companies, you might actually see both of these happening. So you might see a coding interview, for example, like the online coding interview, but you also might be doing a technical screening at some time. At some point of time, you basically you might as well see just it happening on phone. It's not happening on video or Google Meet call or so on. Yeah, that's it. Uh, then you might move to the second. Uh, mute. Right. So the next step is basically on-site virtual interview. It's virtual due to pandemic, but it's mostly on-site, in person. Uh, there are like series of 4 to 5 interviews in a single day, 45 minutes each, and they're focused on different areas. So I've specified the 4 basic areas. It doesn't mean that there are going to be these 4 interviews. It could be like there are two of the same type of interviews. For example, for DSA, you might see maybe more than one interview at the same day, based on company and based on the role as well, as I was talking about. So there's data structure algorithm based problems. I think you are familiar with it. There are domain specific problems. So if you're applying for iOS, you might see some sort of problems related to iOS. There's system design problem. This is something that you would probably see in all interviews, like all companies. System design and DSA are, I would say, they're most common type of interviews. You would probably see them always. System design is mostly one of the most feared interviews, and the primary reason for that is it requires a lot of practical experience with building softwares, which usually the academics doesn't offer you. So that is why it's the most feared interview, but it's not as bad as it sounds. It's not as intimidating as it should be. Uh, so yeah, so that's it. And then there's a behavioral round. It's basically you might meet with the hiring manager. They'll evaluate your soft skills and they'll probably ask you situation-based questions. Uh, this is mostly in some companies it happens after they have done all the technical screening, including the on-site. In some companies, it might be part of the on-site interview process. Uh, at this point of time, you're meeting the managers you will probably be working with. You also have the opportunity to ask them questions. So yeah. All right. So what the roadmap should look like? This is also a question that a lot of people ask me, like, how do I start? Where do I start? And most of the people, including me in early days, what used to happen is like you start at one point of time with a really good intention, and basically you get lost as you are practicing, as you're working on preparing for the interview, and as you get lost, is basically you don't know what to do and you're confused. Uh, so what I figured out is I think any candidate should follow a set of steps while preparing for these interviews. So first is, clear your basics. If you feel your basics are not strong, you probably don't know the difference between an integer and a double. I would say just go back and brush up your basics. It's not going to take a lot of time, maybe just a couple of days to do it, but that's very important when you're in a real interview setting. Then build a structure around your preparation. So either follow a book or follow a course. So there are a lot of courses out there which are pretty good in terms of how you would want to prepare for coding interviews. This is specifically for coding interviews, for the DSA part we talked about. Uh, there's websites like Coding Ninjas. They have a really good structure for competitive programming, and that structure would probably help you to pick and choose what topics are you going to work on. You can also follow books. There's like there's a book called Cracking the Coding Interview, something like that. I might just drop the name later on, but yeah, that's a really good book as well. and pick one topic at a time. So let's say you're working on arrays. While working on arrays, don't juggle up between other stuff. Like don't start trees right away, Just focus on arrays, practice it, and then repeat it. Repeat the same process with a different topic. So pick up one topic. It's going to take a lot of time. It's probably you want to spend about a week on each topic. That's because you also want to uh, you know make your foundation strong. So take your time. Don't rush towards the results because there's no shortcut. You gotta have to practice it. Start with the easy questions, go to medium level, and then eventually go to hard. So that's what you're gonna do. Uh, so while you're practicing it, once you feel you're confident in about maybe let's say 5 to 6 areas, then I would suggest participating in contests like coding challenges and competitive programming challenges. These challenges basically help you to perform under pressure, because it's a timed challenge. So you have to think fast, you have to think under pressure, and it will give you a little bit like an interview sort of setting. Obviously, there's not a real person on the other side, but it will still give you an interview sort of a setting, and you'll be probably by the by by participating in a few contests, you'll probably be more comfortable working under pressure and working under timed problems. So while you're practicing, make sure you also practice on the whiteboard. This is one of the biggest mistake um, a lot of people do. You just practice on the platforms or you just practice on the IDs. So both of them are good, but they're not enough. Because when you're doing interviews, you don't have autocomplete, you don't have intelligence, and you don't have internet to search. So the only thing that you have is you just got to write the code and you just have to think out loud and talk to the person on the other side. That's all. So use whiteboard or pen and paper to practice. Like write your code on pen and paper, do dry runs, uh, and once you're comfortable, you might put it back in that platform, whatever platform you're using, and then run through the test cases and see if your code actually ran or not. Because just to give you an idea, all of the companies that we are talking about, like the big companies, they expect you to write production level code, even in the interview. So when we say production level code, it doesn't mean that you have to build a system. It means that your code should be error free. It should handle all the different edge cases and all the test cases. So uh, that being said, use whiteboarding, use pen and paper. Um, that would probably your best bet to practice in sort of a real world sort of scenario, uh, and then practice definitely. That's a major key towards moving towards this goal. So no amount of practice is enough. Just practice every day, at least 3 to 4 questions every day. That's gonna help a lot. If you can, please go for mock interviews. So just have a question. Do you mean pseudocode on paper? No, I don't mean pseudocode. I mean literally each and every bit of the code, a fully working algorithm on the paper. So it has to be, if you're working on, let's say, finding a palindrome string, I should be able to copy each and every character out of your code from the paper to the platform and it should work. I don't mean pseudocode. So once again, they expect you to write production level code and it means there shouldn't be any errors. It should be working properly uh, from beginning to the end with all the edge cases uh, included as part of your whatever algorithm you're writing. Um, so yeah, so if you can, please, uh, go for mock interviews. Mock interviews really help you to actually understand how the real world setting would work. Because even when you're doing whiteboarding or you're practicing yourself, you still have some help from the internet or maybe the books you are having. But in the mock interviews, you basically time bound. You do a time bound exercise with maybe a friend or alumni, or you can choose anyone with whom you can choose wisely. Basically, that's the key, and you should choose wisely. That the person you're having the interview with, uh, if they can deliver some aspect of the real world. Uh, Maybe they may not be technically very strong, but you want someone who can interview people, who has just a skill of interviewing people, or you want to find someone who's really good at the technology or the job you are applying for. Um, then help others, give back to community. That's a really big push from the industry as well. That give back to community. We gotta help everyone else. Uh, you know, as and when you teach people, you'll also learn a lot because they would have more questions. You'll probably have to figure out those questions. It will help you as well. And then take out some time to relax. You don't gotta be burned down in COVID for whole day every day. You also want some time to relax yourself, do some exercise, take some time to do what you like, your hobbies, and so on. Yeah, so that's sort of a roadmap. I'm seeing some questions, but I'll probably will take that towards the end. Um, okay, so how to work on system design interviews. First of all, what is system design? A lot of people don't know what is system design interview. So system design is not the look and feel. Like a lot of people confuse system design with the actually look and feel, how your product is looking, how's it designed, and so on. In terms of UI, it's not that. It's basically how you architect your solution. So you'll be given a very high level problem while working in system design. For example, you'll probably be said, how would you design a Twitter feed? How would you build a Twitter feed? So it's a very high level question. Interviewers expect you to basically question them back with a lot of queries you have, because the information that they give you is deliberately the very less information, as minimum information as they can, just to get you off the bat. But they expect you that you'll think out loud, and you'll probably um, ask a lot of questions to them. So system design is basically how you architect your solution. There are different, you can say, uh, there are different aspects involved to that design that we're talking about. So for example, when we're talking about Twitter feed, it's not just about how it looks on the mobile. Just think about what all external systems are involved. Just think about um, for example, there's a backend system involved. There's some databases involved, and you have the client applications for different platforms. So you have client application for iOS, you have a web application, you have an Android application. So these are different systems. You kind of have to tie them together. You got to tell your interviewer that we will have these much of client applications. This is a backend system we are using. This is the database we are using. Which technology would you use and why? There's no right or wrong answer here. You can choose, pick and choose any technology, but you got to justify why you're going to pick it. That's one thing. Then there's a lot of expectation. There's a lot of expectation towards what's going to be the throughput of your system. So you have to talk about in numbers. You got to ask them what is the peak traffic that you're expecting. So you got to work a number. They might just throw a random number as well, because system design interviews are not very specific to the towards numbers. They just work on hypothetical situations. So they would just probably throw a number like 1 million requests per second. That's a really big number. You gotta know how to handle it. So uh, the I think the only answer at that point of time, you would probably want to think about how you're going to architecture your servers to handle such heavy form of request. So things like that. I'm not going to go deep into how we're going to design a Twitter feed. Maybe that's a separate topic for some other session, but things like that. So how are you going to do that? How are you going to work on that? Since we have never worked on these systems yet, how are we going to design those systems? So there's a basic uh, step-by-step process you can follow. Uh, you haven't designed systems, but you know about design patterns. So read about design patterns and implement those design patterns in your projects. So there are different design patterns, like I mentioned a few: MVC, MVVM, and MVP. There's other patterns like singleton and different other patterns you can work upon. Um, you implement those in your project. So design patterns, let me tell you one more thing about it. You can apply a design pattern in a single application. Um, you can apply a design pattern within a single feature of an application as well. So you can apply it in a small module that you're building in some application. So let's say you're building WhatsApp. You can apply the design pattern like MVVM in the chat feature, but you can also use the MVVM in the chat window feature as well, like a local MVVM sort of thing. But then you can also use this whole pattern and apply it towards your client server communication as well. So you just got to understand it well. You can apply the patterns anywhere. They're not limited to front end, back end, or things like that. You just got to be more curious about how you can apply it in different type of settings. How you learn that is just by implementing them. So you got to look at examples, put it in your projects. That's how you're going to learn it best. And then, as I was saying before, study external systems. So I was just mentioning Twitter feed. Think about systems like backend servers, messaging queue for chat systems, and then different types of clients you're supporting. Sometimes there are IoT clients involved as well. So you got to think about IoT clients as well. Yeah, thanks. Just think about different systems you can involve, and then find someone who can help you prepare for system design. Because again, this is something. As I said, it's a very practical interview. You gotta have to be working on some sort of project to know what the system design, how the system design works. So you can find someone from the industry who has done that. Your seniors would help. Anyone on the LinkedIn, you can reach out to people, and I think there would definitely people out there who are going to help you. So that's all about system design. And I'm going to jump into a different section now altogether, and we're going to talk a bit about startups. Um, I'm just going to talk a bit about when you apply for jobs in startups, how the expectation changes. And if you would like to work on your own startup, what are the steps that you can take to ensure success, or ensure at least a launch towards the end of your efforts. All right, so the expectations basically adds up to what we had before. So you're doing what you were doing before, but there are other things that you have to do as well. So you have to prepare for an interview like you did before. The interviews are probably same. You have a heavy DSA section, but what they focus on a lot is your technology stack when you are in a startup. So a company can hire you, a large company can hire you based on your DSA, but a startup would probably think twice or maybe thrice before doing that, because they don't have time and money to spend on building your skill just yet. They would love to build your skill. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity in startups to learn, but when you join the company right off the bat, they expect you to start contributing towards their solutions. So you gotta be really comfortable with the technology you're working with. I would say you just have to be master of your skill. And let's say if you're working in Angular or React, you should be very, very confident, and you should know a lot of, you should have a lot of information about them. Um, you should have done a few projects on it, and that would help you to succeed in a startup. And not just that, so when you're in a startup, you kind of have to wear different hats um, when you're working on different projects, because they don't just expect you to work on one thing. They're short of people, they're short of money. They would want you to work on different other things as well. So just be open to other technologies as well. You might also want to be um, asked to work on, let's say, DevOps, or maybe just management stuff. So don't don't worry about it. You'll probably learn when you just go there. But yeah, just be open to different sections as well, and just be comfortable on being uncomfortable, because you will be put in out of your comfort zone a lot of times in startup. You probably have to work late hours. Um, you have to probably be solving problems that you have never faced before, and you don't have any guidance. You probably have to look around and on the internet, spend a lot of time to get the thing fixed within the given time limit. So there's a sense of urgency in startups. They kind of expect to deliver solutions faster, whereas large companies, they can afford a lot of gap or time frame before pushing out the solutions to production. You should also have leadership traits. That's very important in a startup. Why? Uh, there's no micromanagement. So you're working in a set of people, in a team setting, and they expect you that you should be responsible for the task you have been given. If there's something missing, if you have questions, you gotta have to take the initiative and ask the questions. If there are things missing, and if there are um, things that you don't understand, they expect you to figure them out, and move forward. Just keep move forwarding. Just keep moving forward every day with some progress. And you definitely have to be thriving for success there. Uh, be a team player. A team and culture is very important in a startup, because it's a small team. You don't have any room for politics. You don't have any room for trust issues. You gotta be really positive. You gotta play a very positive role in a team. Listen to everyone. Put your opinion out, and don't worry about your own title, because efforts get recognized in startups very easily, because there are less amount of people. There are not a lot of people in the startup. So uh, your efforts will not be overseen, overlooked. They will be seen by everyone. They will be appreciated. So don't worry about your individual title. Just think about the team, how you can help the team move forward, how you can help someone else who's stuck. And yeah, that's one of the most important expectation in a startup. In terms of interviews, I think that's going to be pretty much similar to what we talked earlier. The content is similar. The process might be different based on each startup, but I think that's basically what we covered before. It kind of covers this as well. But these are some of the additional items that you got to be taking care of, specifically in terms of startup, because the large companies might teach you a lot of things. Startup, it's not about the intent; it's basically about the time. that they have, they don't have a lot of time to spend initially on the training part. All right, so that was about getting a job at a startup. But what about building your own startup? So when you want to build your own startup, there are a lot of steps that you should take. And it's important that when you're taking these steps, all of them go right. One step goes bad, and the rest of the steps, they're just not going to mean anything. So you start with the market research about the idea that you're trying to fix, the problem you're trying to fix, and study a lot about your product, study uh, what are the pain points and who are your customers, who are your competitors, and accept your weaknesses and also your strength. So I see a lot of times young entrepreneurs, they know their strength, but they don't know their weaknesses. It's important to know their weakness so that you can work upon them and you can fix them in the coming future. And as I was talking about team before, team is a very integral part of the startup. So build a team of like-minded people, build a team of passionate people who basically uh, have the same passion to put, to solve the same problem and to put it out in the market, and they're not afraid of taking risk. So don't hesitate to make partners. Sometimes in initial stages, you're confused that I don't have money to pay people. Should I give up my whatever 10%, 20% of the company to someone just like that because I don't have money to pay them? So just keep in mind, like whatever percentages you're talking about here, they don't really mean anything until your company does something good, you know. I see a lot of startups just going bad in early days, uh, having different sort of discussions around what percentage should I have or what percentage you have. So these discussions, they don't go anywhere. And to be honest, these percentages don't mean anything until your company builds something, you acquire customers, and until you grow big. So don't worry about that right now. It's not going to be a deal breaker at some point of time if you're doing successful, if you're doing really well. And I would suggest having at least one mentor or coach. There are different startup coaches out there who can help you succeed in each and every step. They'll help you to build out a plan. They'll also help you to answer any questions you might have along the journey you're having. Build an MVP. That's the most important step, because if you don't have an MVP, you cannot really go to the market. What are you going to sell if you don't have the product? So work towards the MVP. Get regular feedback from the users there who are using. Build a feedback loop so that you, with the feedback you get, gets implemented in your next iteration or the iteration after that. So don't think that it's only one chance for you. When you build an MVP, you kind of go in a loop that you move towards a goal, you achieve that goal, you take the feedback, and you come back and fix the problems that you saw in your first iteration. Then you keep going in the same loop. So it never ends. Even when you're a big company, it never ends. The loop still goes on. It's just the steps that changes. You might have extra steps, but that's something you don't need to worry about right now. So focus on getting the MVP out. Sorry. Yeah. So focus on getting the MVP out and just build iteratively on top. Uh, the last and most important step is to acquire customers. Until and unless you have paid customers, your product doesn't really mean anything. You know, you build out a great product, no doubt. It solves a really good problem, but you also got to sell it. To make business, to grow further, and to get feedback for your company and build out that great startup that you have been dreaming about. So acquiring customers is as important as any other step in this process. You might want to spend some effort in marketing your product. You might not see success right away. This is the part where entrepreneurs get discouraged really soon. 1 week of hustling, going out in the market, talking to a lot of people. I don't have a customer, you know. So it's not bad. Just take a break if you feel you're exhausted. If you feel you have been running around, you're not getting something, just take a break, take a step back, see what's wrong, why people are not buying it, and fix that thing and go back. So it's probably going to take a few months to only get a handful of paid customers, which is fine because first couple of years in a startup, if you're doing everything well, first couple of years are going to be really tough. It's not going to be easy. And don't forget the customer service, because customer service is the basically the key towards uh, you know keeping the customers coming back to you. So acquiring customers is one thing, but keeping them with you is a totally different story. So provide the best customer service you can, keep your customers first, and that's the key for retaining them. So those are 4 basic steps towards building a startup. It's not by far the complete, it doesn't justify the hustle that entrepreneurs go, but that's the basic things that you should worry about. This is the process you can follow. There are different things towards it. I see a lot of people talking about funding and um, building a business plan right off the bat in the beginning. But what I feel truly is funding is not really necessary if you are really determined. There are a lot of bootstrapped startups in the industry. Unless your product requires a lot of you can say investment at the beginning, if you're working with hardware, if you're working with a physical piece of some device, you probably need some funding, but that doesn't mean that every startup needs funding. And so just don't keep going crazy about getting a funding. It's not as important. There are a lot of bootstrap startups that have worked out without external funding at the beginning, and then maybe got acquired or got a lot of funding at the later stages. So you will get that. Um, yeah, I think that's all about building a startup. And that's actually the end of my presentation as well. And we'll open the stage for Q&A.
Hi, Ishmeet.
Yeah.
So first we will take some common questions.
Mhm.
What is the ideal time to start coding in college life on your own?
It's right now. It's like exercise. You don't wait for tomorrow. Start today. Uh, doesn't matter which year you're in. Doesn't matter which semester you're in. Uh, Coding has nothing to do with the curriculum that you go through in school or college. It's basically your own journey. Um, you start basics um, from increment operators, B++, B minus minus, and you go towards building these products that we have been talking about. So it's basically your own journey. Start right away. You shouldn't be waiting for a milestone to do that. And it's an iterative process, as I've said many times. You kind of have to build on top of it every day. So yeah, I think just start right away.
And the second question is how to define and choose your domain, SD, data science, or Bit Bitcoin. We have
Yeah.
cryptocurrency right now, cybersecurity.
I don't know if we have access to that kind of energy, like electrical energy, to mine bitcoins. But anyway, never mind. Yeah, so what I did personally was to actually follow trial and error. You know, I just try off the bat um, some technologies, maybe whatever technology interests you. So you can start with web development if you feel that data science is something you want to do. Try it out for sure. Follow some course maybe or some um, online tutorials and just try it out. So there's no way to choose without actually practically doing it. That's what I'm trying to say. So if you feel that you have to choose between a few things, then you just got to try those few things. There's no way someone can tell you do this and do that. Because believe me, like people say that there's a lot of money in ML and AI, there's a lot of money in backend engineering. So you just go and choose them because you feel there's a lot of industry demand. But trust me on this, there's an equal industry demand for every piece of software you're doing. There's no bias in the industry as such. I mean, you might see more or less like different numbers of jobs, but that doesn't mean that the skill is not in demand. It might not be in demand at that particular point of time, and you might want to hustle a bit more, but it's not comparable in terms of. I don't think it's fair to compare just in terms of number of jobs available for a particular type of technology. So yeah, I would say trial and error is the best way. Just try it out. Maybe just only build a hello world application. That would really help you understand. And you guys also have those semester projects. So I think that's the best way to do it. Like build out mobile apps, build out data science projects, build out web development projects. So try out different technologies and see what interests you, and use your academics in together with your industry aspirations. Yeah, that's pretty much.
Uh, I'm able to solve questions on lead code and code chef, but not during competitive coding tests. Also, how important is the competitive programming?
It's I would say it's important. It's pretty really important. The reason I say that is you kind of see interview sort of questions in competitive programming, and it kind of boosts your. It's a brain exercise to basically work in challenging environments. They also give you real world problems. They would just probably ask you, you want to put some, I don't know, some animal like cows in stables at equidistance. It's a real world problem, right? So they give you real world problems, and it helps you to think towards how programming would apply to the real world. So it's pretty important, I think, at least to prepare for the interviews and in some jobs as well. So I wouldn't say it's not used in any job. Like there's a myth that we do data science. Oh, sorry, we do data structures and all that a lot, and it's not used. It's a myth. It may not be used in a lot of jobs, but it's actually an integral part of the other ones, like the other half of the jobs. So it's pretty important in that sense that you do keep a touch with competitive programming. I'm not saying that you keep just doing that every day. You got to do other things as well, like working on your projects and so on. But just be in touch. Like, don't just lose the touch with competitive programming. And I think the first question he asked was they're able to solve it on the platform, but not during the contest.
Yeah,
Is
he
that?
asked that he is able to solve on lead code and code chef, but not during competitive coding tests.
Yeah, that comes back to my earlier point, working in under pressure in time-based scenarios. So when you're practicing, you don't have time constraints. So you just got to train your mind to work on to do time-based exercises. So you can use any sort of method for that, like working with an alumni, or sorry, working with a mentor, or participating in contest. You'll probably, first few contests you might not be doing really well, and that's expected. So don't worry about it. And then eventually, I think you'll build up.
Okay. Approach while in conversation with the interviewer.
What does that mean?
Like, I think he means that how should we proceed while giving the answering
So
the questions.
basically, we collected a number of questions from our students, and we were having some queries like what should be the ideal approach while we converse with the interview? Should we be completely formal, or should we take up an approach which is a bit like to be a bit frank to build some relations, some
Mhm.
kind of better relations which helps us during the conversation? Like how should be the body language,
Right.
or how should the language be actually?
Okay. Uh, in any sort of interview, what matters the most is how well you can communicate yourself. So, uh, for programming or coding interviews, you basically are expected to think out loud. While you're working on the problem, you gotta speak out your mind. You gotta tell them, what are you thinking. So for each and every step, like if you're putting an if statement in your code, why are you putting that if statement? You just gotta think out loud. And before actually coding the interview, or sorry, before actually coding the problem, you gotta you can discuss the approach with the interviewer. And you should actually. It's not just that you can, but you should do that, definitely. It basically helps them understand what kind of approach you're taking. Just don't start coding right away, even if you know the answer, because there might be a better way of doing it, and they might be going towards that. They might just tell you to start with a very basic answer, and you can do that as well. So, you know, don't worry about time complexity or anything like that at first. Just worry about solving the problem. It might be the worst answer, but just worry about solving the problem, and then you and your interviewer will work on it to iteratively build a more efficient solution. So think out loud, talk to them. You don't have to be very formal, I believe, because I don't see a lot of engineers out there who appreciate being very formal. Uh, you can just be transparent with them. Of course, by being transparent and frank, I don't mean just start talking about your personal life or do something that sort of thing. Just focus on the problem you have in hand. Um, and yeah, I think that's the most important part. Just keep talking to them, keep communicating stuff, and just speak out your mind. Um, Communication is the key. Yeah, that's very important in every interview, in all sort of interviews, not just coding interviews. Yeah.
What should be the approach of a student not having CS while in school?
That's me. So I didn't have computer science in school. I had AC. Oh, are you saying high school or
In 11th, 12th.
oh, okay, I see. I had C++ in 11th. So it's a similar sort of thing, yeah. So irrespective, I know while you get taught in school, it's a different thing because there's a course and structure that you follow and you gradually learn over 2 years. So if you're starting programming in college and you didn't have computer science back in high school, I think it just goes back to the fact that you have to follow a structure. Uh, Pick up the same book that your peers have used to learn the programming, and start learning from the very beginning. Don't worry, don't look at the others. Others might just be a bit ahead of you, but that doesn't mean that you are less capable. It's just that you have started late in the journey, and it's not, I wouldn't say really late. It's just about finding about particular aspiration of yours. So if you found out about programming in college, you kind of want to try it, just start out right away in your first year. Don't wait until you see some courses in college and so on. So if you don't have CS in school, uh, it doesn't matter in the sense that you can still learn it, follow some books, and reach out to students who actually do. So it comes back to my point of when we were talking about the roadmap. There was a little point to help others. So it's basically the responsibility of people who are doing well to teach others. So reach out to people who do know coding, and there I believe there are different clubs like I don't remember the names, but there used to be like Android Club and then PSG and things like that in the school in college. So um, yeah, just reach out to these groups, and there definitely be people who can arrange some sort of seminars where there are instructors who can come up and teach you coding if you are not comfortable doing it by yourself.
How to approach companies off campus?
I mean, it's just go on their website and apply. Yeah. So, okay, I think the question should be how to get selected for the interviews, how to make recruiters pick up your resume, because there are only 2 3 ways you can apply off campus, which is you can apply directly on the website. You can reach out to the recruiters through LinkedIn, share your profile, and they'll get back to you. Most times they do not even reply. So uh, you have to make yourself stand out. So build your profile in a way, like I was talking earlier, work on some projects, uh, showcase your projects, let the companies out there know that you have done really well, and build a good resume. Uh, put relevant information. Don't put your hobbies on your resume. I see a lot of people putting in, I love to play cricket. It doesn't matter to the companies, to be very honest. Like it's a standard that we have been following from I don't know how many years, but it doesn't matter to any company if you love to play cricket and you're not going there to play cricket. You're going there to write software. So talk about your skills in your resume, and that will help them shortlist you over other candidates. So just be as comprehensive as you can. Build a profile, build your portfolio, uh, and and the technologies you have learned, just showcase them. So that will help your resume being picked up. Applying off campus is pretty much same. I think you just go on the website, you apply. There are a lot of screening tools which screen your resume and automate in an automated way, and then the recruiters get them to analyze it if it's a match. So there should be good keywords based on the profile you're applying for. Um, and when the resume gets picked up, there should be enough there for them um, to go through and to say that this is a good candidate for us to interview.
So, what should be the approach of an EC student towards placement of both IT sector and their own hardware sector?
I was an EC student. I was never interested in EC, but I tried it out. Didn't work for me. Um, and I did the same things I've been repeating. I did some projects. I did about 3 large-scale projects while I was in college. So 2 of them we actually sold. So be passionate about working on projects. There's no other way to learn than being practical. Let me just tell you in plain simple words. For any of the uh, if you're asking me how to stand out, you have to be working on some practical stuff. So doesn't matter if you are in EC, doesn't matter if you are IT or CS or whatever branch you're in. If you are interested in some other field, writing software, just do it. Because this world is not anymore, they don't go by academics. You have full liberty to learn whatever you want through internet. Uh, your degree is at some point it's just a matter of fact, a qualification. It does not get you a job. What gets you a job is the skill that you learn, and you can learn the skill from anywhere. A lot of engineers are not doing engineering jobs; they're doing management jobs. They're doing other jobs like, or they're being successful in other areas which are not even technical or IT related, like maybe in theatrics, maybe in singing, and different sort of areas. So they probably don't just have the degree for singing, for example. If you can learn singing from anyone, you can sing well and succeed in that. So similarly, it goes for when we talk about cross branch things. So if you're an EC, it doesn't matter. Just do the same thing. Uh, Learn about programming if you're looking for software jobs. If you're looking for hardware jobs, just do the same thing with the hardware. So, build your portfolio, build some devices, build. I remember we used to build the robots, like some remote controlled robots and the obstacle detector and the line detector robot. Uh, so I did those two, three sort of things there, and that like it was interesting, but I knew that it's not my thing to go into hardware. So you will understand sooner or later that what do you like. So follow the same process. It's not whatever we talked about is not specific to software. For any sort of industry, you got to practice, you got to showcase your work, and that will make you stand out. And that will also make you a better engineer than others. So you'll actually learn in the process. It's not just about getting calls from companies, it's more about being a better engineer that you don't have to worry about uh, that will I get a call back or not. You don't have to worry about that after a certain point of time.
Yeah, so there was another question which we saw among our students, which was very common. So, what is it? What should be the ideal approach for a person who wants to get placed or desires to get placed in a bank company? As this year we have seen 3 to 4 of our seniors got placed in Amazon, and we have you with us today, placed in Microsoft currently. So, a couple of things. Is there something particular or some specific approach that students should take for applying and getting selected in the FANG companies? Also, if you could share a bit about how your experience has been working in Microsoft, and if it is, how different it is, the work culture and the stuff basically.
Okay, that's a really good question. So, uh, in FANG, I think what they're looking for is the smart minds. So, just forget about your outer personality for a moment and just go back and look at your skills and be honest to yourself and say, like, am I really good at writing DSN algorithms? It's about accepting your weakness. So, whatever interview processes we talked about today, they're all relevant to FANG, and the roadmap that I shared is all relevant to FANG. But it's just not has to be on paper. It has to be in your everyday efforts. So what I mean to say here is that when I said they expect you to write production level code, that's actually really true. So if there are 5 interviews you're going through on site, and let's say you mess up in one of them, you actually probably lose the chance. You have to perform well in all of the interviews to get selected in FANG companies. There might be exceptions. Again, no one can tell for certain what's going to happen in future, but from my understanding, you have to be your best and you have to be the smartest person in the room if you want to aim for these companies. Now you have to plan strategically of about what exactly are this company looking for. So for DSN algorithms, you have these competitive programming platforms where you can showcase your profile that you're good at DSN algo. So your profiles from these platforms are really relevant. You can mention I'm at this much, I have this much ranking in this specific platform. That's one thing. The other thing they're looking for is practical experience, which is, as I've spoken about a lot, working on projects and everything. And I think these two are very major points. Apart from this, your communication skills are the key. So once you reach the stage where you are in the interviews, you got to be really comprehensive and you have to talk your thoughts out really well to for them to understand what you're thinking, what your thought process is. So when I was saying before that you just don't have to solve the problem, you have to explain how you're solving the problem. That is one of the very important steps while you're interviewing with these companies, because they don't care if you know, you might have learned it somewhere, but they want to know what is your approach towards solving it. And you might start with the worst solution, but you have to move up and make it more efficient. That will actually tell them how much knowledge you have or how much uh, agility you have in solving problems, where you can build up on top of the existing problem and make it more efficient. So I think that's what they're looking for differently from other companies. In terms of culture and my experience, Microsoft has been great. It's been 2 months now. Um, Today is actually my 2 months anniversary. I just joined in March 15. It's been great, and the culture at Microsoft is known to be uh, heavily focused on work-life balance. I've seen that myself. The quality of work is definitely very different from my past experiences. Uh, I've worked on large scale projects before as well while I was working at RBC. Uh, they also had like a pretty good technical architecture, but working at Microsoft has been a totally different story. There, with the big size of the company, there also comes a lot of processes and steps that you need to follow for a particular to achieve a particular result. So to solve a one-liner problem, like just to maybe change a color of a button, sometimes it takes us like 2-3 days just to get it approved from different people that should we be changing this color or not. So they're very specific on what sort of product they're sending out. So uh, it has to be your skills have to match that sort of expectations that they have. Your skills have to be production ready. Obviously, they don't expect you to write a system right out of your college and write a whole solution for some product, but they do expect that whatever you're writing is error free and it's production ready.
Yeah, another thing what we had from our students was, is there some specific advice or suggestion you would like to give our students in what to do in this pandemic situation with respect to our preparations and strategies towards the coding rounds and stuff, the preparations for interview processes, because after a point, all of this gets to the mind and it sometimes affects the mental health also. So, is there something which we can adapt and which could probably help us in the current scenario?
Yeah, I think pandemic has been harsh on everyone, and it has affected the mental health of people. Uh, Most of the time, this goes unknown. Like uh, people are not ready, or they don't even know they are being affected uh, mentally on this aspect. So what I personally do is basically take out some time every day to relax in whatever manner you like. So if you like to play games, um, you're free to play games. Uh, if you can and if you like, please go out and exercise. I don't know in India if you can go out to exercise, it's safe or not, but if not, then just do it in your home. You'll definitely find some place where you can exercise a bit. Um, you know, have a routine set because it's very problematic in pandemic that you would probably start binge eating, binge watching, and you're putting on weight and becoming lazy and all that. So don't do that. I did that last year. I'll be honest. Like I was so stressed and just keep eating every day and so on. But it was just like after a month, I realized I'm not doing good to myself. So just went back and starting exercise again. So shed a few pounds if you can. This is an opportunity as well. You don't have to waste time on commute. Talk to your friends. Have some. Actually, there's one thing that me and my friends used to do. We are a group of like 6, 7 people from since my college days, and all of us are like mostly engineers. Uh, so we blocked like an hour every week to just meet and have fun. So 1 or 2 hours every week, uh, we might just come on Zoom and just chat and laugh and just spend some time. So the only way to be stress free in this pandemic is just to spread happiness and take happiness from your loved ones. Spend time with your friends and family virtually. Don't go out, and just put some time on yourself and avoid screen time. I would say that's one of the most important thing. Avoid some screen time every day. Just don't be with your phone and laptop every day all the time. Uh, you'll probably in a few days you'll be so tired and lethargic that you won't even realize that it's happening.
Yeah, time is
So we
spent
have
short.
few questions in chat if you can answer them. And guys, if you have questions, feel free to ask.
Yeah, we would like the floor to be open to everyone for the Q&A session. You may ask whatever you have in your mind.
Okay. All right. The first question here is, can you brief something more about system design and what study material to follow? Uh, System design, as I said, it's a very practical interview. You gotta be, um, you can say, you gotta be working on projects to do that. So there's no shortcut to system design. You have to work on some projects. Or actually, one thing that you can do is study research papers regarding different systems being built out there. So one research paper that particularly everyone should read, irrespective of what technology you're in or not. It's one of the oldest research papers. It's about the architecture of Linux operating system. So I didn't have CS in college, so I think this is being taught in colleges as well. So I don't know if it's in your curriculum, but I particularly read the research paper outside of my curriculum. So uh, it talks about concrete and conceptual architecture of Linux. So it's not about learning about Linux, but it's more about to understand what sort of different systems can there be in one particular solution. You know, so it will help you to learn more about how systems are broken down into small pieces. That's just the starting point. Don't take my word for it that it's going to help you in interview perfectly. It's not, but it's just a starting point. You'll understand how to start, and you can read similar research papers. You can find them out on the internet. Look at YouTube videos. There are a lot of good YouTube videos for system design. You can follow that and have a mentor if it's possible to basically help you do some mock interviews in system design. So next question is, I have a startup which is an IT consulting company in Scotland and Hong Kong. I would like to take my startup to next level. I want to know a growth strategy from your experience from a startup. You're the first interviewer interviewed for full stack development intern. Oh, so this guy interviewed in my company. I don't remember to be honest, but well, thanks for applying. Could not make it, but was a wonderful experience knowing your story. Well, thank you. So, so how you can build a growth strategy for your startup? So, I think once you have done some projects, you might want to showcase them in a way that it can grab more customers. Put some numbers on your website. Um, like when you helped the customers in Scotland and Hong Kong, what did they save in turn? Like what was the value that you added to them? So you got to help people understand that value to grab your other customers, and spend some time and money on marketing. Marketing is one of the neglected areas in startups because people don't understand how important it is. So yeah, just focus on marketing part. Uh, Put out some numbers on your website of how you have helped people, and to actually build a growth strategy. I would say you need to sit down and put out some specifics about your startup. Um, I mean, I can only tell you the generic things, but every startup has its own journey and its own give and take. So it has to be built specific to your company. So just sit down with some career coach or startup coaches that can help you to do that. Okay. How to correctly answer this question? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? So, yeah, this is a very common question that we get in a lot of companies. Uh, to a lot of companies, it's very important. To some, it's just a formality to ask you. But as an engineer, basically, if you think about joining as a fresher or even experienced people, you got to step up your game every time the technology evolves, and you have to step up your game in terms of what sort of work you're handling. So to me, when I answered these sort of questions, I'm basically looking at things like, in 5 years of time, I look at myself. If I'm working on just small projects right now, I'm looking at myself leading those projects or similar projects. I'm looking myself to handle more areas outside my current work domain. Um, I'm looking to add more value to my role in terms of, if let's say I'm doing front end development, I want to work on architecture as well. I want to work on the areas that I have not learned yet. And particularly, I want to go up the ranks, but you don't just say that in an interview that you are greedy about ranks. But what you got to tell them is you're looking to contribute in a more uh, larger area than what your current role is. Next question is, I'm having a hard time to choose a technology to work on, currently working on Java. What would be the advice? I just can't seem to figure this out. So finding a technology is actually really hard for a lot of people. Just do your evaluations. You gotta try a few things. There's no straight answer to that because what fits your need. You gotta try a few. You gotta try a few things towards, uh, you know, try out some technologies. Look at the pros and cons of each one of them, and see if it fulfills your need. If it does, then try it out in some of your project. And if you see if you're comfortable, you can move on with that. So you kind of have to build a plan for yourself when you're trying out different stuff, and that will probably help you choose the one that's best for you. I want to know what you do at Microsoft. What is the way, or what are the type of project you do at Microsoft? Also, are you using programming languages in the same way like us? What are the other languages or techniques using in Microsoft? Okay, so I work on Microsoft Teams app, the very platform that we're using right now. I work on the mobile and devices side of it. Uh, and this is the desktop app, but what I work on the iOS app for calling and meeting. So the meeting is the one that we have having right now. Uh, In terms of projects, I mean, this is what I do so far. But obviously, Microsoft is a big company, so there are a lot of room for different sort of technologies. Um, I don't understand the question. Like, what do you mean by are you using programming languages in the same way like us? Um, I don't understand what exactly that means, but I think the languages are same, and it's just about how you write and use it. We just heavily focus on design patterns, architectures, in writing robust code. Other languages and techniques, I think there's no language out there that is not used in Microsoft, primarily because of the size of the company. There are a lot of products that they have, so I think um, uh, like there's no limited amount of languages that they use. There's like so many of them that you can't even put them in numbers. So all sort of technologies are used at Microsoft for different features and different products based on the needs. When did you started preparation for placements? To be honest, I didn't really start preparation per se. I was continuously working on projects. I was continuously working on different ideas, continuously doing some competitive programming stuff. Uh, Not every day, but yeah, maybe every week. I started early. I was not focusing specifically on placements. I was just working on myself. And when the time came, I feel the practice that I've been doing kind of really helped me because I was already ahead of a lot of people who just started working on placement. So if you have been working on your project since beginning, that's good. If not, if you're just starting out, um, give some time to yourself. Don't rush for placements. There will always be jobs in the market. Uh, if you have to spend 4 to 6 months just on yourself, please do that. Yeah, that's the same question from Jaskirat. Where can we find research papers? There are a lot of publications. Springer, I think, is one of them. You can just go online. There are many publications. You can find research papers. Many universities also have their content, like Stanford, MIT, University of Waterloo, Queen's University. All of these universities, their professors have a lot of content publicly available. So think about some topics, you can Google it and find their content. You can also find a lot of YouTube videos around from these universities. There's a CS50 course, I think it's from Stanford. You can follow that. Um, so there are many number of ways you can find research papers. There's not one specific site, but yeah, everything's available on the internet. Were you determined to go abroad for further studies, or were you aiming to grab a placement after BTech? Um, I don't remember actually. I think I did get a placement while I was there, but I chose not to accept it. I found a good university, and that was my target. So when I got an admission to Queen's, I did not think twice because I felt it's a really good place for me to study. So to answer your question, I think probably I was more inclined towards studying further, um, and um, um, that's where I went. Can I crack Microsoft in 1 year if have done nothing? I don't understand that question, to be honest. Like, you mean that you don't do anything and then you get placed at Microsoft? I think it's really hard for you to get placed anywhere, not just Microsoft, if you're not putting it. I might have understood your question incorrectly, but please correct me if I'm wrong. Abhilash, um, how can someone get placed in Microsoft or Google? I think we have talked heavily about it back in the presentation as well. Um, you just got to follow the same steps, So I didn't do anything out of the box to get um, placed at Microsoft. I just kept working on my projects. It just kept learning every day. So I used to find out my weaknesses and work on them either through YouTube tutorials or whatever study material I found with my experience and so on. Um, you don't need to do something different to get placed at these companies. If you're doing everything right, you will get placed in one of these companies. And also, there's one thing that if you don't get a call back or if you don't get selected, that doesn't always mean that you are incapable. Please keep that in mind. Ask for the feedback because a lot of times these companies either don't respond or either send out a rejection because there could be a number of reasons. For example, the position is not available anymore. They selected someone else. Uh, there could be that they're just the team that was looking for your resume doesn't matches with their particular scenario. They're looking for someone with a very specific requirement. So there could be a number of reasons why you didn't get selected, why there was no response. So don't take it on yourself that you are incapable. Just keep putting in your effort.
I see quite a question, Ishmeet here. Uh, that gives me the thought that we had in mind. Could you please move to the final part of our today's meeting, the major event that we wanted to launch today, uh, the big thing that we had in mind? If you could please, yeah, make it open for our students. Also, the other thing, we have floated a Google form in the chat where I would like my fellow students to fill it so that we know what kind of sessions you would like to have, as this would be a continuous ongoing session series from our alumni. So yeah, back to Ishmeet. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, well, so we are the part that Lovepreet is talking about is we have actually built a Slack channel, and it's a Slack workspace where you can communicate with your alumni and you can communicate with other people in your college. And the questions, I see a lot of questions going in. So this doesn't have to end here. I think there's sort of a stigma that if you don't get your questions answered today, there would be no way for you to get them answered in future. That's not true. So to mitigate that situation and to be in constant touch, we decided to build a Slack workspace, which is open for everyone to join. The link will be shared with you guys through the official. We actually got the link in the chat, so that's great. So you can use this link to join the workspace. I will be there already. We'll be pulling in more alumni from previous years into the Slack, so you can ask different sort of questions. Use the general channel or reach out to someone personally. Be respectful. That's what I would ask you. And the best part is that the reason that the Slack was chosen is because that is being used in the industry every day. So almost every company you go in, they might be using Slack in one or the other way. You might see some different tools like maybe Teams being used. I gotta say that because I work there. But yeah, so it's very similar to Slack as well. So it's one of the very professional tools that you'll see especially in India. I think a lot of people use it. So you already get familiar with the technology before you actually go to the company. So please join Slack. Uh, put out your thoughts there. Put out your questions there. You can reach out to people personally, and yeah.
Yeah. So, Ishmeet, I would firstly like to congratulate for the wonderful journey you have had since you have
Thank you.
graduated from a college, and I could surely say this was really an insightful session for me personally, and I am very sure for my fellow batchmates and the junior students also.
Yeah.
I would like our placement and training officer, Mr. Parminder Pal Singh Bedi sir, to please acknowledge us with a couple of words.
Hello, Ishmeet. It was
Hello,
really
sir.
hello, Ishmeet. It was a really very
Hi, sir.
insightful session for the students, and I was there all through the session, right from the beginning till end. And I take this opportunity to thank you for sparing your time for your juniors, for your college, for your other students who could be in touch with you through your this inaugural Slack workspace. And take this opportunity again to thank you on behalf of GTBIT management, our director ma'am,
Thank you.
and myself. I'll always be thankful to all my alumni who could spare their time and help their students, help their juniors and the college to what we discussed that day that we want to take our college at number one slot in Delhi and in North India.
Yeah.
So, as we have talked that day, and you said that you will be trying to pull out some of your own batchmates and other alumni who could, along with you,
Yeah.
come up to share the stage. And as per your suggestion, we have already slotted this time of 7 to 9 as alumni time where they can come and share their experience and they can take up the questions of their juniors and they can help them out in the best way that they can because there are a variety of students and they want to go in for variety of different things and based upon that your expertise and your other friends expertise could really help them out to achieve their goals in the times to come. So with this, on behalf of all the students in GTBIT, I thank you, and we are issuing, a Thanksgiving letter to you for sparing your time and an appreciation letter wherein students have got such an insightful things of your experience and how could they improvise and how could they, make up their learning on a regular basis that you suggested them that you cannot do the things in 6 months or 1 year. You have to think it regularly. You have put in your efforts on regular basis, and it was really very impressive. And with this note, I thank you once again, and we'll be mailing you your Thanksgiving letter to you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the gesture. And thank you everyone for taking our time to come today. And yeah, and it's, as I said, it's not the end. It's the beginning. You can also use Slack to put in your suggestions on what sort of events or what sort of topics you would like to get covered. And we'll work towards bringing the right people in. Doesn't matter if they're alumni or not. We can try to get some people from the industry to, just speak out on a topic. I would definitely encourage everyone to use Slack and be respectful to each other, uh, be mindful, and just help each other. No matter where you are, I believe everyone can help someone in any way. So just do that, and I think things will get better for everyone. And thank you so much for organizing this. Big shout out to Aman and Lovepreet. You did a lot of effort and others as well. I don't know everyone's name, but thanks a lot for organizing this whole team.
Thank you so much, Ishmeet, for taking out time from your schedule and sharing your experiences with us. The session was really insightful, and there was some major learning that we shall carry forward with us. I'm quite
Mhm.
hopeful that a lot of students have benefited from this session and got their doubts cleared.
Right.
We are looking forward to stay in touch with you and keep learning and growing in the
Sure.
future as well. Wishing you a great day. Stay
Sure.
safe and healthy. Thank you.
Yeah. You too,
Thanks,
guys. Thank
Ishmeet.
you so much.
Thanks for joining in. Thank
All
you,
right, guys.
everybody.
Yeah. All right, guys. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, bye bye.